My boyfriend and I decided to go camping at the gorge for some quality time together. It was the first time we were going alone, without our usual group. As we prepared our gear for the hike to the camping spot, we encountered two sketchy-looking guys near the trailhead. They gave us a strange look before retreating to their old-school Volkswagen camper van. Despite my unease, we continued to the camping area. Having camped in the area before, I was familiar with the different spots. I scouted various locations, aiming for privacy. While exploring, I noticed someone camping further up the hill. I chose a spot slightly lower, hoping to stay out of sight but within earshot. I overheard the person I had seen yelling with someone else on the trail, adding to my growing unease as dusk approached. As darkness fell, I ventured out to gather firewood. Suddenly, a man appeared out of nowhere and offered to sell us firewood for $10, claiming that the area had been cleared out in the past few weeks. I found his presence and claims suspicious, especially since he had earlier mentioned camping alone but then admitted knowing other people in the area. His stories seemed inconsistent, and I sensed he was lying. He confessed to living in the woods for almost a month, surviving on snakes, bugs, and selling firewood. He expressed loneliness and took us to his camp, which turned out to have multiple belongings, indicating that he wasn't alone. He mentioned preferring a campsite with a vantage point to observe everything and everyone, pointing out our camp as one of his viewing spots. As the discomfort intensified, I tried to subtly urge him to leave, realizing that I couldn't sleep with him nearby. Eventually, we managed to politely part ways, but throughout the night, we heard unsettling sounds around our campsite, as if someone were watching us. I became convinced it was the same man. Fearful for our safety, we decided to quietly pack up and leave, abandoning our new tarp to avoid alerting him. However, as we made our escape, he yelled, beckoning us to return, which only heightened our urgency. We hurried away, concerned that he might have malevolent intentions due to his inconsistent stories and evasive background. The next morning, I reported the encounter to the park rangers. Thankfully, we only lost a set of tarps to the unsettling experience. When I was 15, an incident occurred during a Boy Scout campout that left a lasting impression on me. My tent mate had backed out at the last minute, leaving me to set up and sleep in the tent alone. We returned to camp after a long day of hiking, and as darkness fell, I struggled to pitch the tent by myself. It proved more challenging without assistance. Eventually, someone came over and helped me, and we proceeded to have dinner. Following the customary tradition of telling scary stories around the campfire, we all retired for the night. I must admit, having my own tent felt somewhat liberating, as I had more space to myself. Exhausted from the day's activities, I fell asleep quickly. However, I abruptly awoke in the middle of the night to the sound of footsteps thumping around my tent. Initially, assuming it was another scout heading out to relieve themselves, I dismissed it. Our scoutmasters had instructed us to pitch our tents far apart, so I was quite distant from my fellow scouts. Yet, the stomping continued, circling my tent, making it evident that someone was intentionally messing with me. Annoyed, I called out, asking who it was. In response, the footsteps abruptly ceased, and the person responsible retreated into the woods. I contemplated following them, but concluded it wasn't worth the trouble, and tried to fall back asleep. Regrettably, the stomping returned, encircling my tent once more. Frustration turned to anger, and I unzipped the tent door, prepared to confront the individual responsible. To my shock, instead of a fellow scout, I encountered a tall, grown man in his mid-30s, standing at roughly 6'5". My heart raced, and I was paralyzed with fear, unable to muster the courage to scream. The man, wearing a sinister smile, placed a finger to his lips, gesturing for me to remain silent. In a panic, I swiftly turned around and sprinted towards the scoutmaster's tent, screaming like a terrified child. Even before I reached the tent, my scoutmaster emerged, alarmed by my distress. I recounted the encounter, and he immediately mobilized, along with the other scoutmaster, grabbing one of the hunting rifles. Hastily, we returned to my tent, but the man was nowhere to be found. However, we did discover his tracks encircling the tent. In response to the incident, we were instructed to relocate our tents and position them closer together, practically on top of one another. The remainder of the trip was cut short, and we all returned home the following day. Since that unsettling experience, I have never ventured camping again, and I am resolved that I never will. The memory of that encounter with the mysterious man continues to haunt me, serving as a constant reminder of the dangers that can lurk in the darkness of the wilderness. After graduating from college, I embarked on a solo backpacking adventure in the vast expanse of the Canadian wilderness. It's essential to emphasize the remoteness of my location, with the closest town a grueling 3-hour bus ride away. Throughout my expedition, I encountered only a single individual from a distance, who gracefully paddled a canoe, seemingly undisturbed by my presence. Equipped with a handful of disposable cameras, as digital cameras had not yet gained widespread popularity, I eagerly captured the breathtaking sights around me. Immersed in nature's wonders, my photographs primarily showcased the serene landscapes and wildlife encounters. However, the course of events took a chilling turn when I reached the middle of my first camera's roll. As I flicked through the developed pictures upon returning home, my heart skipped a beat when I stumbled upon 2 unexpected images. They revealed a shocking sight, the sight of myself, sound asleep inside my tent, cocooned within my sleeping bag. The discovery sent shockwaves through my entire being, plunging me into a state of sheer panic and confusion. The mere thought of someone trespassing into my secluded campsite and surreptitiously photographing me in my vulnerable state was enough to trigger a complete breakdown. To this day, the enigma surrounding those mysterious photographs remains unsolved. The incident left an indelible mark on my psyche, shattering my confidence in camping and fostering an overpowering sense of paranoia. Even now, as I lie in bed at night, the door remains ajar, and the curtains firmly closed, as if to ward off any lingering presence from that haunting experience. The lingering fear persists, a haunting sensation that the watchful eyes behind the lens may still be observing me, hidden somewhere in the shadows. Last summer, a few of my buddies and I embarked on a camping trip by the tranquil Willamette River. We ventured deep into the woods, enjoying a decent hike before settling down for the night. As the evening unfolded, we engaged in night fishing, shared laughter, and indulged in drinks until everything seemed hilariously amusing. In the wee hours of the morning, well past 2 a.m., my buddy and I retired to our shared tent, while the other 2 occupied a nearby one. We initially heard their laughter, which initially amused us as well. However, as time passed, their continuous laughter became increasingly annoying, prompting us to yell at them to quiet down. Strangely, one of them responded, claiming it wasn't them. Startled by the response, I sat up, my inebriated mind struggling to comprehend the oddity of the situation. It was peculiar for someone to be out so deep in the woods at such a late hour. Gradually, the laughter drew nearer, growing louder and closer to our campsite. My friend's worried expression mirrored my own growing concern. Our other friends, sensing the eerie atmosphere, called out to us, expressing their own unease. The laughter, unmistakably that of a middle-aged man, resonated through the night, seemingly as intoxicated as we were. However, there was something unsettling about it, something missing, something that sent chills down our spines. It's difficult to put into words, but one had to experience it firsthand to truly understand. The laughter now hovered at the edge of our campsite, yet we heard no accompanying footsteps. This struck us as odd since moving through the underbrush without making any noise seemed impossible. Abruptly, the laughter ceased, plunging us into an uneasy silence. We scanned our surroundings, unable to locate the source of the laughter, as if the mysterious figure stood motionless, observing us. Tension permeated the air, and my friend struggled to maintain composure amidst his mounting fear. Then, a noise shattered the silence, the sound of something brushing against the fabric of our tent. Moonlight revealed the faint outline of a hand pressing against the fabric, sending us into a frenzy of terror. We screamed at the top of our lungs, scrambling out of the tent and sprinting through the woods, with our friends following close behind. After what felt like an eternity of frantic running, we stumbled upon our car, gasping for breath. The adrenaline and exhaustion overwhelmed me, causing me to vomit, but I knew we had to escape. I took the wheel, fully aware that drinking and driving is never acceptable, but in that moment, we believed it was our only means of survival. That night remains etched in my memory as the most harrowing experience of my life. We still have no idea who or what that laughter belonged to, nor do we understand their intentions. It serves as a chilling reminder that some encounters defy explanation and leave us with lingering questions that may never be answered.